I had two really cool ideas for the natural lagoon. First was to have the monorail cross it. That didn't work. My other idea was to have the zipliners flying across the lagoon. That also didn't work. The natural lagoon is plagued by infuriating limitations, including awful terrain constraints. Like, what is this? Come on! If you're struggling to build with and around this natural lagoon, then I think you'll enjoy this video because even with the limitations, I built something that I'm really happy with. And even though my first two ideas didn't work out, I still have a couple of other ideas that I want to share with you. Hello everyone, welcome to a build in Jurassic World Evolution 2 using the new stuff from the Malta DLC. The story behind this build is that the Natural Lagoon is like a tourist attraction that uses the profits to fund an inland dinosaur reserve. So people can't just go and see the dinosaurs, there's no dinosaur park here, the dinosaurs are all peacefully living in their natural habitat away from humans, but to cover the cost of the land, protection against poachers, and, you know, all around dinosaur care, people can buy a ticket and come see the epic MOSASAURUS and support a good cause. Now, for the purpose of this video, though, I did include some other animals in this build as well, just because I had some ideas that I wanted to share with you. I like coming up with stories for my builds to, I don't know, give it a little more depth and give my brain something to do as I place thousands of planters. And I started this build with a different way for guests to view the spectacle of watching, you know, the Mosasaurus feed on the shark, because really, the viewing galleries that are placed around the natural lagoon don't have the best viewpoint of the limited spots where you can put the feeders, so that's why I put those towers up there, and you can see that I'm using a lot of the Malta decorations to fill in the gaps in the genome, so to speak. And here you see, I did use the zipline idea. I couldn't cross the lagoon with it, unfortunately, which is really a shame, but I decided to have the zipline go alongside the lagoon instead, so we still get that really cool view. Now, I'm using the concrete fence here to substitute the wall pieces. You really saw me struggling there with the terrain constraints. The terrain constraints on this map are truly horrendous. But what I'm using it for, like a combination of the concrete fences, which are not constrained by the terrain, and the new Malta wall pieces, is to obstruct this hatchery from view, because it looks very run down and rusty and utilitarian and just not pretty, you know? And I want to use this hatchery as an attraction. I've done this before in another park build, but with the drone that you launch from the hatchery, I think that's kind of a cute attraction idea where people can go into like this VR situation, take control of the drone, and explore the lagoon that way. I've done it before, I really like that idea, and I wanted to incorporate it here, because, you know, the lagoon is essentially the only attraction here, right? Or at least the main idea, so I wanted to get the most out of that, and I feel like that was a pretty cute idea. And then in front of it, I'm creating a queue because, well, let's just pretend that there are, like, maybe a dozen drones available at any given time, with, you know, a dozen corresponding VR headsets, so you can imagine that there would be a buildup of a queue as people wait to go onto this attraction. So that's why I built a long queue heading up to it. I'm using so many of those wall decoration pieces and the towers. I think they are one of the best things about the DLC, honestly. Like, they are instant must-haves for me. I will say, this park build, at the end, it's not even a full park, right? All I did was build stuff around the natural lagoon, and the game was already stuttering quite a bit. I did not get a smooth frame rate, so yes, I did place a lot of decorations, I will admit that, but dang! Like, that was some bad performance, so I don't know how a full park would manage with this much detail. I'm putting applause here. You can see the terrain constraints there, absolutely mind-boggling. So I'm just figuring out how far I need to pull the path back to be able to put a building there. I actually wanted to put the building where I put that big, like, patch of pathwork, right? I actually wanted to put the building there, but I couldn't because of the terrain constraints, which I cannot I cannot say this often enough. They're absolutely ridiculous. But I guess this worked out nice. I have like this plaza that overlooks the lagoon, so I guess that's nice. You know, we've made the best of it, so I don't hate it in that regard. But I don't know if you've built on this map yet. If you have, leave it in a comment down below. Tell me what you built here. Tell me what your experience of it is. But if you haven't built on this map, I think you're gonna be quite shocked by the terrain constraints around the lagoon. It is quite ridiculous. So it is a constant struggle, and you really have to figure out how to work around it. Now, thankfully, the planters you can place without issue, but stuff like fountains, just like buildings, have to be on a perfectly flat surface, so their use is very limited directly around the lagoon. But in the end, like I said, I'm not mad at this little plaza that I managed to create over here. And I think it's nice, and again, you know, it creates that sort of vacation type of feel that I really wanted to have a lot in this mini park. I suppose that's what we should call it, with just, you know, a lot of attractions focused on the same thing. So you can see, like, even this viewing tower over here has a little bit of a queue leading up to it. Not as much as the hatchery drone attraction, as I like to rebrand it, but just a little bit. I feel like that looks realistic, you know, to have a little bit of space for people to line up to actually be able to do the attraction. So I've done that all over the place for every single viewing gallery. I am a little miffed. I will say that you can't delete the viewing galleries, nor can you change the era of the viewing galleries. So you are stuck with all of them, and you're stuck with this look of them. So I really had to beautify them with a lot of planters and stuff. But again, you can't use the wall pieces this close to the buildings, this close to the lagoon. So quite a struggle. So a lot of planters were sacrificed in the making of this park. Now, the docks are the only places where you can attach decorations as well as the feeders. I needed the feeders this time around. I don't usually bother with that, but I needed them this time because I wanted to have the MOSASAURUS feeding show. But creatively, what I did with some of the docks, I really like. You can see how close I got with the path on some of them, and I really like what I did with that. That'll come a little bit later on in the video. Here I'm just snaking up a monorail to the top. I'm not going to be building there, but just like a suggestion of what you could do. It's just a single way monorail. I didn't loop it, it was getting too messy. And then the arrival points are over here, and I did 2 of them in this DFW style because I felt like that fit with my sort of, hey, this is a good cause kind of park. You know, it's not completely polished underneath the surface. It's you know, it's a charity kind of situation. It's a care for the dinosaurs kind of situation. So that's why I chose those buildings, and I really like the layout of these 2 together, you know, to get that sense of, okay, it has a bit of a higher capacity than just having one helicopter flying in every once in a while. Again, so many of these wall pieces, it's absolutely insane. My PC is gonna hate me for sure. I think it already does, because why wouldn't it? But now it has like some really valid reasons to hate me, because oh my god, this mods DLC is gonna be the end of it. It will be annihilated by all of these decorations. Anyway. When you're going to be building on this map, what I really recommend that you do is put Jurassic World hotels right here on the edge of the cliff and give them like this absolutely awesome view of the lagoon down below. Again, I didn't actually build in this area, so I'm just doing like the minimal terrain work to give a suggestion, because again, the whole point is like this dinosaur reserve that is funded by this singular attraction. It's not for guests anyway, so you know, you can use that idea and actually put dinosaurs up there, but I didn't bother with that for the purpose of this video. Now, this hotel here is what shaped up to be my favorite part of the park. Like in front of that dock with the decoration, with a bit of path in front of it, it just looks so good. It looks so vacation destination. I want to be there. I want to lounge there, kind of thing. I want to sit on that dock and watch the MOSASAURUS eat some great white sharks. It was just, this was probably what I think is like my favorite part of the build and the most picture perfect part of the build, but overall, I'm just really happy with how it turned out in its entirety. And again, I can't stress this enough, with the limitations of the map in mind. These water fountains in front of the hotel look really beautiful. You can see here that you can put the decorations up there, but they sort of sink into the ground, so I went with these planters instead. And I guess people just have to sit on the ground or just stand, you know. Oh my god, they should not stand too close to that edge. That is dangerous. Because there's a MOSASAURUS right there. Anyway, I would not want to sit there. I would not feel safe. And of course, in the game, the MOSASAURUS can't actually beach itself or jump onto the ground, as we did see it do in the movie Jurassic World. But in the story for this park that I have in my head, the Mosasaurus can definitely do that, because it's actually an attraction that we're gonna work into it, but we'll get to that later. Here again, I'm leading the path right up to the dock. There's like a tiny sliver where it doesn't connect, but you know, we can squint and ignore that. And that's really how I liked using the docks, to pretend that our guests can actually go on there and look out over the natural lagoon. Now, obviously, even though it's a natural lagoon, you can tell that my build around it is very the opposite of natural, right? And you might think that that's wasted or illogical because it's a natural lagoon. Why don't you just turn this into a completely natural dinosaur reserve section? Well, that's because the buildings that are attached to the natural lagoon, they're permanent. We can't get rid of them. So I feel like the natural lagoon doesn't actually work that well as the centerpiece of this wildlife sanctuary, because you can't get rid of those buildings. They're just gonna be there. So that's why I leaned into that. I kept the buildings, and in fact, I added a ton more. Like, basically, the entire surroundings are buildings, you know, hotels, attractions, amenities, stuff like that. Because there's no point in denying what it is, right? It's like, sure, the lagoon is natural, but the environment, oh my god, those terrain constraints, they're giving me a headache just thinking about it. But yeah, the buildings are there, so we might as well work with them, right? Now, if you do want to have like a completely natural build, obviously you can still do that, and I guess you could pretend that the buildings are all just abandoned, but for this idea, I ran with the fact that, you know, we have buildings here. We're gonna work with it. We're gonna turn it into an attraction, and that's why I incorporated the rest of the story in my head. Like, okay, but it's used to fund this larger dinosaur reserve where the dinosaurs are actually happy and living in their natural habitat and whatnot. But, you know, long story short, this might not be the kind of build that you were expecting / hoping to see when I talk about building with the natural lagoon. But personally, I feel like Frontier forced our hand by not having those buildings be demolishable. Is that a word? Demolishable? Destructible? Removable? Deletable? You know what I mean, though. I felt like they forced our hands, and it feels a little bit silly to actually use it as a natural lagoon. You know what I mean? I think I've spent enough time on this. You either know or you don't. You either get it at this point or you don't. I just wanted to explain that because I feel like you might have gone into this video with different expectations whenever the word natural lagoon is thrown around. I certainly went into this map with different expectations when Frontier announced that they were giving us a natural lagoon. I did not think that a natural lagoon included buildings that were just permanently there forever. Anyway, I'm building like a teeny tiny dinosaur exhibit over here. I realized that I don't even think I put dinosaurs in. I think I forgot actually in the end. But this is just to show you that if you're gonna build on this map, you can incorporate little exhibits around the natural lagoon, like sprinkled throughout your guest areas, but I would personally just keep them small. They don't really fit like the story that I had in mind, right? But this park is like, or this build is like a combination of the idea that I actually had and wanting to show you as many other ideas that you can incorporate in your own build. So that's why I included that little dinosaur exhibit. I'm going to be building an aviary pretty soon. We're getting to it. And we're also going to be building something for the Spinosaurus later on as well. But here you go. The aviary, I just felt like it was cool to have an aviary here and just to fill the space, because at this point I realized, okay, we're gonna have a lot of attractions here, a lot of hotels already, so let's get something else here to mix it up a little bit. So that's why I went with the aviary. And you can see that this area is actually quite large, so what you could also do is use it to build a larger dinosaur habitat, like a regular land dinosaur habitat, but because I decided to put the arrival point all the way at the back there, I sort of had already used that space for something else, but I feel like the aviary works there really, really well. And you know, as part of like my own story, I could pretend that either these flying reptiles were new arrivals in the park and they are just in quarantine for a little bit until they get introduced to the general population, or maybe they're wounded, or maybe you can't release flying reptiles at all because inevitably they will migrate all over the place and kill some folks, kill some Kirby's, kill some, God, what was his name? Billy! Kill some Billies. Or try to at least. Oh, this is the start of a very special attraction. Like, it's one of those attractions, just like the hatchery drone attraction, you have to use your imagination because it doesn't actually work like this in the game. But I like using my imagination. I like filling in the gaps and coming up with stuff that the game has neglected, but I think is cool to build areas for in your park anyway. So in this area, this is where trainers can have the Mosasaurus beach itself, so it can jump up onto the land over there. And show itself, like show its massive size to the people in that viewing gallery. So like there's that little inlet with the wall over there. That's where the trainer would stand, behind that second wall there. And you know, just like killer whales can be trained to perform certain tricks. We're not gonna get into the morality of that. That's bad, but you know, just like they do that with killer whales. I like imagine that the Mosasaurus could be quote unquote trained in a very limited sense as well, to the extent that they could get it to beach itself in that certain area as part of, you know, the educational show, you know, whatever. So that's what that little area is for. I like doing that. I like coming up with attractions that aren't actually in the game, like that Mosasaurus beaching area and the hatchery drone attraction, which obviously, of course, doesn't actually work like that. But I like coming up with ideas like that and making areas for it in my parks, because we are limited in terms of the attractions in our parks. So, you know, I have the imaginary capacity to make that happen in my head canon, you know? I can just pretend that's a thing. So that works for me. If it doesn't work for you, I totally understand. But unfortunately, that does mean that you would just be limited to, I don't know, I guess placing just another viewing gallery or something like that. But yeah, if you do enjoy those kinds of ideas, there you have one. Just use the natural lagoon, have a little section off to the side, leave it empty, and pretend that the Mosasaurus can safely beach itself there. And with safely, I mean safely for the animal, safely for the guests, and safely for the personnel as well. You know, ideas like that. I hope that you can use that for your own ideas. And I have something similar to that coming a little bit later as well with the Spinosaurus. I feel like I already spoiled it, but that's okay. So, just a lot of path around this whole ordeal. The thing is, oh, here I'm getting a head start with like the Spinosaurus habitat, so I should talk about that first. So the idea here is that the Spinosaurus would be able to go in and out of the lagoon. It has its land area over there, its land enclosure, and it can jump into the water, go for a swim, and it can come out only in that specific area. I don't know, maybe something with invisible fences, or whatever, maybe like a chip or something, some way that keeps it contained to the lagoon and that one bit of land over there. It's like designated enclosure. It doesn't necessarily work that well in combination with the fact that we have a MOSASAURUS swimming around in this lagoon. I don't think the two would be best of friends. But I just wanted to show you the idea that you can put a you can put a Spinosaurus enclosure right onto the lagoon and just pretend that the Spinosaurus can jump into the lagoon whenever it wants and be contained to that. It's just an idea that I wanted to share with you, even though it doesn't necessarily fit with the story that I had behind this park. Okay, so just see the two detached from each other. I just wanted to share as many ideas with you as possible in this in this first video of trying out something with the natural lagoon. Now here I built a visitor center. I just feel like it's like the crown jewel of this park. It's like a centerpiece, really. It's iconic, and you can just imagine that if you're staying at a hotel on the other side of the lagoon and at night you stand on the docks and you look across the lagoon and you see the iconic visitor center, and in between you see like the ripples of the MOSASAURUS swimming through the water. That would just be so cool. So that's why I put the visitor center there. I initially toyed with the idea of having the innovation center, but the visitor center was just a much better look aesthetically. It just fits the surroundings and the other buildings much better than the innovation center. So this side of the park is really just the visitor center, another hotel, more amenities. I did try to make more exhibits work. You didn't see that. I cut it out, but I did try one elongated exhibit, something like 2 or 3 smaller exhibits, but the space that was left was so awkward. I just didn't feel like it worked very well. I didn't feel like it flowed. This part, like this side of the lagoon, is just too narrow, in my opinion at least, to make work in combination with like land exhibits. So that's why I decided against that. And it's just a lot of path work and amenities and like natural areas instead. And it really is a shame. I have to admit that however happy I am with how this build turns out, and I really am happy with it, and I hope that you're gonna get a lot of takeaways from it as well for your own builds, but really, the whole time I was thinking to myself, dang, what a shame. What a waste of a super cool idea. Like that natural lagoon, it's so cool, but they put it in such an awkward map. They put it in an awkward place in that awkward map. Like the space that's left around it's made even worse by how big the lagoon is, like right in the middle of it. And all of these other constraints that I discussed at the start of the video, it's just so much, and it's such a shame that I kept having that thought as I was building, like, it was such a good idea, but in the execution, I really feel like they made quite a stumble. So I can imagine that more people might struggle with building something awesome on this map, and that's exactly why I pushed through my own disappointments and my own struggles, and I wanted to build something here that I was happy with and that I could share with you guys for maybe some much needed inspiration, because I can imagine that it's not easy for anyone really to build on this map with the limitations that we have, and how our creativity really gets hampered on this natural lagoon map. I don't know, maybe I'm being too harsh on the map as a sandbox builder. Let me know what you guys think of this map. And now we've arrived at the showcase section of the video, so you can see what I made of the natural lagoon. Really happy with the zipline off to the side. And this is probably where I feel like it looks aesthetically the most pleasing. I love that combination of the hotel in front of the dock with the decoration. So good. And you can just imagine like the view you'd have across this lagoon, and you'd see the MOSASAURUS pop up once in a while. You have the visitor center on the other side with a fish feeder right in front of it, so you can just imagine that at set times the public could gather there when the fish are released, and it would be like this feeding frenzy with maybe Elasmosaurus or Plesiosaurus or something else that's going to be in this lagoon. And of course you have the main attraction, the MOSASAURUS, which feeds on great white sharks right in front of you. You get like first class tickets to see that in action. You can ride the zip line and look down at the lagoon and see if you can spot the shadow of the MOSASAURUS under the water. You have this overview of the entire park. I didn't build the dinosaur reserve for this video, but you totally could. Like, you could build a dinosaur reserve up on the other part of the map and have a tour go through there, so that's an attraction that they could do. You can use the Spinosaurus idea that I shared with you and build a Spinosaurus enclosure like right on the edge of the lagoon and pretend that the Spinosaurus can jump into the water and go swimming out into the open and be seen there as well, and like have its sail be visible on top of the surface. I just really hope that this video inspired you to tackle this map and build something awesome here, like I feel I did. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a like, and of course subscribe for more park building tips, tricks, and inspiration. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.